Okay, so this problem here is pretty simple. Equation of a circle in factored form. So now I've got x plus 5 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 36. So all I really need to know is remember the original formula here, x minus h plus y minus k equals r, and they're all squared, right? So x minus h. So this should be 5 would be h, except for that we've changed it to plus 5. So that means it's got to be negative 5. And here we have plus 2, so that means it's going to have to be negative 2, because it should be y minus and h and x minus h and y minus k. So when you see plus, that should tell you, oh, I got to change the signs on this. And then my radius is the square root of this number, which is the square root of 36. So that's 6. So that's how these are done. Now here we have a minus, so this is just simply 6 for h and 1 for y, and the radius is the square root of 4, which is 2. And then the next one we have, this one we flip the sign, right? Negative 7 because it's plus, and over here we have 8 for k, and the square root of 36 is 6. See how these are done? Really, once you know this formula, it's not that bad. It's 6. I mean, you got to make sure you don't make mistakes with your square roots and stuff, but as long as you know how to do your square roots, and if not, use a calculator, but you know, they're pretty straightforward. Here I have 4, right? And negative 6. This will be negative 6 here. And the square root of 4 is 2. So that's how those are done. Okay? And we've done those a billion times and have them mastered here. So we're going to move on a little bit. Okay? And the next one we're going to try is this problem here. It says equation of a circle in non-factored form. So we have here an equation of a circle, and we got a little bit of a problem here, because basically what we have is we have the circle. I'm gonna write this one out and work through it. We have the circle, and it's not in x minus h, y minus k form. So this is where we're going to do that whole trick about completing the square, right? So we're going to complete the square to factor this out. So let's take a look. Let me write this down here. I've got x squared plus y squared minus 8y minus 9 equals 0. Well, here I'm going to give you some good news, kind of. Okay? If you see x squared and no more x's, well, you're in good shape, because x squared is the same thing as saying x minus 0 squared. So now we have h. So h is going to be equal to 0. We know that. Okay? And that takes care of that by itself. So now all we have to do is factor this down, and we would go, what is y minus k? So in this case, what we do is we look here and we think, I need to get the square here. So what am I going to need to add in? All right, here we go. Half of 8 is 4. And if I square that, I get to 16, positive 16. Half of negative 8 is negative 4. And I square negative 4, I get to positive 16. So I've got to add in enough to go from negative 5 to positive 16. So I'll add in 25 to both sides. And that would give me y squared minus 8y plus 16 equals 25. Okay? That's minus 9 plus 25 equals plus 16. Now this can be factored. And that's y minus 4 squared. So I've got x minus 0 squared, y minus 4 squared equals 25, which is 5 squared. So my answers here is h equals 0, and then k equals 4, and my radius is equal to 5. So let's see, is there a way we could do this on the calculator? I love the calculator, man. Hold on, let's do this. Let's just clear this out real quick. I'm going to start from scratch. Here we go. So let's say I had that equation right there, and I wanted to try to complete the square with just this part right here. Like, I recognize, okay, I got x squared by itself, but how do I complete this square? So what I would do is I would go, there is a complete the square under algebra. You have complete the square right here, number 5. And we just put in there this part of the equation right here. So I go y squared minus 8y minus 9 equals 0. I want to complete the square and factor it for y, that comma y. You see how that looks in there? Let's get that up close. So I use that complete square, right, for y. And then that way, if you're not all that great, you can see, you know, it worked it out for me that was y minus 4 squared equals 25. So it added the 25 here, and then factored it for me. So if your algebra skills aren't good, again, this is geometry, not algebra. Okay, I want you to use your algebra tool, okay, to help you if your algebra skills on your own aren't that strong. Okay, but anyway, we can do this problem that way. We have h is equal to 0, y was equal to 4, and the radius was 5. Okay, let's go to the next problem. All right, so now we have a little bit of an issue. Okay, let's see what we can do here. We've got to complete this square. So let's try this. Get that equation written down. Sorry, I've got move it right here. Let's go x squared plus y squared minus 6x minus 16y plus 69 equals 0. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to let's go over here. To do these, we use the power of commutation. Okay, that means we're going to say x squared plus, and we will move this negative 6x, right? So we're going to move the negative 6 there, plus the y squared minus 16y plus the 69. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to figure out how we can set this up into trinomials so that we can factor them. So we know that what we're going to need here is we cut this in half from 6. Negative 6 is going to be negative 3, and then we square that is going to be 9. So we have x squared minus 6x plus 9. Now I'm going to take that from here so that what's left is y squared minus 16y plus 60. So what I did was I put 9 here and 60 there, but that's still adding 69, so I haven't changed anything. Right? I just added 9 here and added 60 there. So now I can factor this, right? So that would be x minus 3 squared plus, and over here I've got to figure out how can I get this to factor. Well, what do we have here? Half of 16 is 8, negative 8, right? Negative 16 is negative 8, but negative 8 squared is 64. So in order to get this done, I'm going to have to add 4. So I'd add 4 to both sides. I get y squared minus 16 plus 64 equals 4. And then I can factor this. This is going to be y minus 8 squared equals 4. And I have x minus 3 squared plus y minus 8 squared equals 4. So this is the actual, it actually calls for you to be able to do this. Okay? Calls for you to be able to take an equation that's not, the Common Core calls for you to be able to do this. Take an equation that's not in factored form, complete the square as necessary to get it in factor form, and then recognize that your coordinates are going to be h is 3, y is 8, and the radius equals 2. Okay? So let's put that in. 3, 8, and the radius equals 2. By the way, could we do this here? You know, you say, gosh, I don't know. I don't understand. So let's see if we can complete the square. And I'll be honest with you, I really don't know exactly how this is done on this calculator. So I'm hoping that I can figure this out. Okay? Again, menu, algebra, complete the square. So now we're going to put this whole stinking equation in here. Let's just put in x squared. Well, let's try putting the whole thing in. I don't think it's going to want me to put the whole thing in here. Minus 6x. Oh, sorry. Let's put the first part in there. Let's go x squared plus 6x, right? I'm so sorry. I need that original equation, so I'm a little bit distracted. Okay, plus y squared. This is x squared plus y squared minus 6x. So we're going to go minus 6x, right? And then minus 16y. Okay, we've got that part down there. Right, and then the last part of it said plus 69. So I go plus 69. Now I have to say, can we, we have to put in there equals what it's equal to. It's equal to 0. Okay, I think that was right. It was equal to 0. Yep. All right, and then we have to put which one we're going to factor for. So let's put x, comma x. And you can see that it's wanting me to go x minus 3 squared. And then it's taken all that and put it on to the right. So now what we would want to do is think about that. You would do this kind of by hand. You're going to solve it for x first. So I did this, complete the square for x first. If you remember, comma x meant 4x first. Now I have to come down here and see where it moved it away. I got to move that back. So that means I could, at this point I would know that I could write, just like the calculator says, x minus 3 squared. But I'm going to move this all back. I'm going to take away that negative sign. I'm going to take away this negative sign that's there, and because I'm going to add it to both sides, so I should have plus y squared minus 16y plus 60. Okay, and that would be equal to 0 because I'm adding it back, and that means this would be crossed out. Okay, so now I can put this in and say let's complete the square for y. So even if I didn't know how to complete the square for x first, which I kind of did as you saw, but if I didn't know how, I could come down here and I could say, menu, I think I wrote on my screen there, sorry, menu algebra, complete the square. We're going to put in there open parentheses x minus 3 close parentheses squared plus, and bring all that over. So it's just going to be y squared minus 16y plus 60 equals 0, right? So I just brought this back over. That was a negative parentheses, and I brought it back to this side, put equals 0, and then I would put comma y. And that would help me to recognize that I could do, hey, y minus 8. Okay, so I recognize, well, I've got a little bit of a problem here how I would do that. I'd have to remember that I could turn it to x minus 3 and y minus 8, but I wouldn't know how I'd get 25 on the other side without having to refactor that. So my guess would be, see this part, I want to factor that out. And I really just want to complete the square just for that portion. So I'd go menu, algebra, complete the square. And this time just put in that whatever's in there, y squared minus 16y plus 60 equals 0, and I want to factor that for y, or I want to complete the square for y. And I put in enter here, and now I've got y minus 8 squared equals 4. Okay, equals 4. Now, that's because I added 4 to both sides, right? So my first factored was, it came in up here that it was x minus 3. Came in right here that it was x minus 3. When I completed the square for x, it said, hey, just x minus 3, and this is what would be left. And so I said, okay, what about completing the square on that side? And it said, well, you'd have y minus 8 would be your square, and you'd have equals 4 on the other side. I know that's a bit confusing, so next I'm going to do it again, and we'd end up like this. But I'm gonna try and do it one more time and show it to you a little bit simpler, but we'd end up like this: x minus 3 squared plus y minus 8 squared equals 4. So let's go back to this problem. Oh, 3, 8, and 2. We already have that answer there. Okay. So here we go. Watch me do it again. This time I'm only going to use my calculator. Okay, so I'm going to just write down this problem, and I'll just use my calculator. So the problem says x squared plus y squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. So for this one, oh, by the way, I see this y squared. Oh gosh, this is an easier one because I know y squared is really, y minus 0 squared. So all I have to worry about is, the rest of this squared. I know there's no other y in here, so this is just y minus 0 squared. I can factor that out. Oh gosh, this is an easier one than I kind of wanted it to be. All right, well, let's take a look at the calculator and let's put that one in there. Okay, let's start by completing the square for y squared. Now watch this. Menu, algebra, complete the square. We're going to put in the equation as it came across, x squared plus y squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Okay, and I guess I just solve it for x first, and I get x plus 4 squared equals negative y squared minus 1. So x squared plus 4, we would write that down as part of our answer. We would go x plus 4 squared. That's where that part's going to come from. Okay, it came from right here when we factored it for completing the square for x. Okay, right there. Completed the square for x, and we got 4x, and we got x plus 4 squared. So that's where that came from. But now we need to complete the square for this guy. So we would say, we're just going to put this part over here. Forget the negative sign. Just with over here, we're going to do complete the square on this. So menu and algebra and complete the square. We're going to put y squared minus 1 equals 0. And we want to complete the square for y. And we get y squared equals 1. So that what that tells me is I've got x plus 4. Let's go back to the factored form. X plus 4, and then I've got plus y squared equals 1. That comes from here. There's that y squared equals 1. So now I think of h, k, and the radius. The h here is going to be negative 4. K here is going to be 0. There's nothing there with the y squared, right? And then the square root of 1 for our radius is going to be the radius is equal to 1. So negative 4, 0, and 1. We'll put that in here. Negative 4, 0, and 1. And that's how that is done. Okay, we're going to close that guy out. And let's look at this last set of problems real quick. Oh boy, Pythagorean Theorem. This one's a little bit of work. Center is at O. We have here some Pythagorean Theorem. We can figure out the radius. Okay, so let's figure out the radius. OA, we need to know that. So we know it's 12 squared plus 5 squared. So let's use our Pythagorean Theorem. Okay, so we go 12. Let's use the algebra tool here. We have a right triangle. Get this drawn out for us real quick. In this diagram of this circle, we have this right triangle that looks like this. We want to know the hypotenuse, and we have 5 and 12. Okay, let's go back to the camera. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we need to find that hypotenuse. That was OA, this was O, and that was A. We know that this is 5 and that's 12. Okay, so how would we do that? Well, we could do a solve command. Let's solve. We put in the Pythagorean Theorem. So we know it's 12 squared plus 5 squared equals the hypotenuse squared, H. Show you that. Oops, sorry. Solve equals H squared, and I want to solve it, comma, H. Solve it for H. Then I get that it's either negative 13 or positive 13. Well, I know this isn't a distance of negative 13, so this answer is positive 13. We go back to this OA is equal to 13. That's this radius here, which tells me this radius is 13 and that radius is 13. So now we're going to use Pythagorean Theorem and solve for this leg right here. Let's do, see, it wants CD next. So let's go ahead and do CD, okay? CD is going to be leg squared plus leg squared is equal to 13 squared. So we have 2 root 22 is CD, I'm sorry, OD, and then over here, this is the leg we're solving for, and we know this is 13. Back to the picture, right? We know this is 13, this is 2 root 22, and we need to solve for L. So we'll use our solve command. So algebra solve. We're going to open our parentheses up. We'll put 2 square root of 22 squared plus L squared is equal to 13 squared, and we want to solve it for L. We hit enter, and we get L is either, oh boy, you can't see that. Put the one leg in squared plus L squared is equal to 13 squared for L. And I've got negative 9 or positive 9. I know it's not going to be a negative number because we're talking a distance, so this has to be a measure of 9. I'll go back in here and say this is 9. Okay? And lastly, OF. OF here. So I know this is 13 and this is 10. So I've got something like this. This is 13, this is 10, and we're trying to solve this other leg. So now we're going to use our calculator, 13, 10, and L, and we can solve like this. Menu, sorry, we go algebra, solve, right? And we're going to put in the one leg was 10 squared plus the other leg, which was L squared, is equal to our hypotenuse, which was 13 squared. We're going to solve it for L and hit enter. And we get root 69. Take always the positive solution there. So we're going to put the square root of 69. And there's our answers. So that's how those are done. Go ahead and get these problems. Let's see if the next one looks exactly like it. I won't do it for you. And it pretty much looks the same. Let's see, h minus k, or h minus x, and y minus k. So pick any point in the circle, call it A. The coordinates x, y. We create a right triangle. So what is the length of OB? So OB is going to be x minus h, right? This x value minus h, that's OB. And AB is going to be y minus k. We kind of know that. We've worked through that before. So the equation is going to be, let's see, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals, now the square root of 23, when I square that, it's just going to turn into 23. Right? Because the square root of 23 times the square root of 23 is going to just turn into 23. So that's how that's done. And I think pretty much you're just going to be doing the same thing here. OB is x minus h, AB is y minus k, and then you're going to have the square root of, or you're going to have 7 squared in there. So x minus h, y minus k, and we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals 7 squared, and that is 49. Okay, 7 squared is 49. Okay, that's pretty much how they all look in here. I think you're going to be able to do the rest on your own.